Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are diving into the plot and story of the climax, the finale of the Spore War adventure path. The fate of Kyonin is at hand as Treerazer launches a brutal surprise attack on Iadara, the capital of Kyonin. The stakes are higher than ever before. This is Book 3, A Voice in the Blight. Centuries ago, in the twilight of Earthfall, while many elves chose to flee, the proud archmage Aelthian remained behind with a handful of loyal followers. Determined to keep the spark of elven legacy alive, he secured his fortress Arbrecht within a protective demiplane. For millennia, Aelthian slept through the Age of Darkness, his vigilant watch over Arbrecht spanning nearly 8,000 years, until the demonic threat Treerazer surged forth in the year 2632. Corrupting the lands into a blighted realm called Tanglebriar. Aelthian initially thought that the sudden surge of magic he sensed beyond Arbrecht's planar barriers signaled a massive return of his people. When he emerged, however, he found a nightmare. The ward surrounding his tower held against a fungal wave of fiendish corruption, leaving a circular clearing around his home, an island in a sea of blight. Treerazer's presence kept Aelthian in the dark even after the elves returned, and as the war between the demons and the elves raged on, Aelthian remained desperately isolated. 300 years later, in the year 2988, the elven witch Salicifex discovered Arbrecht and brought news that his elven kin had returned to Galarian and were locked in a desperate war for survival with Treerazer. Aelthian was finally able to emerge from isolation with the support of the elven army. With renewed hope, he unleashed his formidable magic against Treerazer. Yet, Aelthian vastly underestimated how powerful Treerazer had grown, and his attempt to banish the Demon Lord backfired disastrously. Arbrecht, Aelthian, and the surrounding lands vanished in a burst of corrupt energy. Unbeknownst to him, this sacrifice marked a turning point in the war. Though his actions did not end the conflict, they weakened Treerazer enough to shift the battle's tides in favor of the elves. Aelthian's desperate bid to banish Treerazer ended in disaster. Instead of hurling the demon back to the outer rifts, his spell imploded, ripping open a path into the void and shattering his home Arbrecht. In the ensuing chaos, Treerazer captured Aelthian's soul, imprisoning it within his weapon, Black Axe, with plans to torment it endlessly. Yet, even in death, Aelthian defied Treerazer, resisting the Demon Lord from the grave. Treerazer, realizing how vulnerable he had become after Aelthian's attempted banishment, had to force his attention on greater threats and sealed Aelthian's soul away in the Amaranthine Oubliette, a remote prison within the void, ruled by the treacherous warden known as the Python. Before his soul was consigned, Aelthian managed to send a desperate cry for help through the resilient roots of Tanglebriar, a plea that has echoed unheard through Kyonin ever since. After the Spore Queen's fall in Book 2, the fungal network of Tanglebriar faltered, and for the first time in centuries, a magical plea rose from its depths. Amid the blighted landscape, the voice of the long-forgotten archmage Aelthian emerges. His whispered words call out to Salicifex, a figure whose legacy now rests with the PCs, imploring, "Help me. I failed. He's locked me away beyond Arbrecht." Arbrecht is now known as Dim Crater. If the PCs can unravel the mystery of Dim Crater, they might just gain an invaluable asset capable of altering the Spore War's grim outcome for the better. As the Spore War moves towards its climax, our heroes operate deep behind enemy lines. As titanic battles rage across Kyonin and Tanglebriar, the PCs have left their mark from the shadows, sabotaging enemy operations and bolstering elven allies. Every daring move earns triumph points, precious tokens that can be spent during key war interludes to secure battlefield victories. War Interlude 1, Rivers of Darkness, occurs at the very beginning of this adventure. Kyonin's rivers, once a fading pathway for Tanglebriar's corruption, now serve as channels for deadly toxic spore clouds. These dark plumes threaten to carve the forest into isolated fragments as they surge northward into elven lands. At the adventure's outset, the PCs can watch as the elves are forced to flee, allowing the blight to engulf southern Kyonin and double future war interlude costs. Or spend a triumph point which rallies the forces of nature, druids, primal sorcerers, and witches to harness wind and purification magic, curbing the spore cloud's advance. Hearing Aelthian's faint, desperate cry for help, the PCs are urged to hurry toward Dim Crater, the ruined site where Arabrecht once stood. If they haven't already gleaned this vital clue from the whispering message, a trusted elven ally like Shalelu or Queen Talandia can fill in the details. As they traverse the corrupted lands of Tanglebriar, Aelthian's ever-present voice guides them, its directional pull unmistakably pointing towards Dim Crater, about 40 miles west of Deathstalk Tower and equally distant from Tanglebriar's northern border. At Dim Crater, the corrupted forest gives way to a mysterious clearing where nature itself seems to have been reshaped by a dark force. A 30-foot wide swath of cleared land encircles a portal to the void. The 15-foot diameter hole to the void absorbs all light. This absorption is so complete that only greater dark vision can pierce the 30-foot emanation of darkness around this area. Beyond the 30-foot sphere of greater darkness, the ground is strewn with dry fungus and fallen trees, arranged as though blasted outward by an unseen impact. This area is covered in normal darkness that can be seen through with standard dark vision. These areas of darkness attempt to counteract any sources of magical light. 6 mentally linked fiendish fungi known as crowded veils stand watch along the clearing's edge. As they attack, they begin transmitting messages to all other crowded veils, including to some found within Treerazer's Witch Bowl. At the end of each round, that at least one crowded veil remains alive and aware of the PCs, attempt a DC 5 flat check. On a failure, the information spreads and costs the PCs 1 triumph point. The PCs can lose no more than 3 triumph points during this encounter. Hidden within the fallen trees and brittle-looking fungi of the crater's edge, a dangerous fungal colony awaits. This is a complex environmental hazard that activates when an unwary PC crosses its boundary or even merely flying too low above it. The fungal colony erupts in a deadly display. Jagged fragments of wood and fungal spores shoot 120 feet skyward, unleashing a piercing shockwave that can shatter bone and restrain the unwary in a grip of spores that harden and fossilize on the PC's bodies. For 4 rounds, these clouds of spores settle around the area, causing poison damage. If the fungal colony has not been disabled on the 4th round, the very ground itself splits open. From this rupture, ancient war-sworn, ghastly figures of elven skeletons entwined with mold emerge to assail the PCs. Adventurers may attempt to pacify this threat by invoking the lingering spirits of nature, carefully prying open key trunks to vent the spores, or triggering a controlled collapse of the fungal structure. All are dangerous gambits that require multiple skill checks to succeed. At the heart of Dim Crater, a 15-foot wide portal hovers 30 feet in the air, encircled by a writhing mass of thorny vines that resemble an inverted tornado. As the PCs draw near, Aelthian's voice shifts from a distant plea to a desperate, resounding cry. He is trapped within the amaranthine oubliette and begs for rescue. His urgent message is cut short as the oubliette's warden, the Python, catches Aelthian's soul, crying out for help. The Python sends 4 towering Sumbrivas to investigate the portal and to capture any intruders. Once the Guardians of Dim Crater are vanquished, stepping through the portal is as simple as touching it. This mysterious portal hurls its travelers into the void, an alien realm defined by its antithesis to life. Not evil by design, but utterly inhospitable. The void is a forbidding expanse few living beings dare to enter, save for those desperate enough to seek forbidden power or on a mission with no other recourse, such as the PCs. Those who traverse via the portal find themselves near the relative safety of the amaranthine oubliette, where the void's lethal influence is tempered, yet even here the void exacts a constant toll, inflicting damage round by round, a grim reminder that in this realm the living stand little chance. War Interlude 2 for the Spore Queen occurs as the PCs enter the void. A sinister, living haze blankets Tanglebriar, a toxic shroud of spores and stench that reaches skyward like monstrous tentacles, plunging Kyonin into shadow and poison. In the wake of the Spore Queen's death, Tanglebriar's forces, fueled by a thirst for retribution, march with destructive intent. Spending no triumph points lets the enemy's fury run rampant, and the remaining triumph point count when determining the state of Kyonin at the end of the adventure is lowered by 3 points. Or, by spending 1 triumph point, the people of Kyonin rally, wielding wind magic and blasts of holy light to shatter the haze, allowing sunlight to pierce through the gloom into Tanglebriar for the first time in centuries. This causes remaining triumph point count at the adventure's conclusion to be 3 points higher. Deep within the shattered realm of fallen Duramak, the once inhabited planet that was sucked into the void, the Amaranthine Oubliette stands. Centuries ago, when the Archmage Aelthian's banishing magic disastrously backfired against Treerazer, it not only obliterated his home and ended his life, but also tore open a rift into the void. Treerazer, pleased with this unintended side effect, locked Aelthian's soul away in the Amaranthian Oubliette. Governed by the Python, the current and 13th Warden and exiled Archdevil once known as Typhon, this prison is a pressure cooker of agony. The Python nurtures despair within its walls, patiently waiting for the souls to break so he can consume their torment and eventually unleash that power upon Avernus to reclaim the lost dominion he was exiled from. The PCs must infiltrate the Amaranthine Oubliette, one of the Great Beyond's most formidable prisons, braving its 23 levels of lethal defenses, shifting realities, and the ever-present threat of the Python and the Void's insidious influence. Within its walls, the Void's corruption is restrained, but at a terrible cost. Food and drink become tasteless, slowly eroding the will to eat or drink, while death itself is a prison. Souls remain trapped in undeath, unable to pass on unless released by the Python, only to suffer further torment. Even the prison structure defies escape, its force-like walls nullifying incorporeal movement and teleportation, ensuring that no prisoner, no matter how powerful, can break free. Infiltrating the Amaranthine Oubliette is a complex operation using the infiltration subsystem, divided into 3 phases: breaking in, exploring the prison, and actively escaping. Each phase presents 2 obstacles. There are 4 potential complications and 4 opportunities for the PCs to exploit, alongside key locations where traditional combat encounters are unavoidable. In Phase 1 of the infiltration, the PCs must scale the outer walls of the Amaranthine Oubliette and bypass its magical wards, navigating through traps, guardians, and other defenses within its sprawling interior. They will need to identify hidden shortcuts and work together to overcome the fortress's intricate security. In Phase 2 of the infiltration, the PCs delve deeper into the prison's maze-like corridors, observing and deciphering guard patrol patterns. A critical success reveals the location of the warden's chambers, while a normal success leads them to the observation tower, a 13-story structure where guards monitor the entire fortress. To disable the tower's control room, the PCs must either engage in combat with the Guardians, 4 Devasances that patrol the tower, or use stealth and careful planning to complete the task undetected, earning valuable edge points based on their success. After disabling the observation tower, the party then sets out to pinpoint Aelthian's cell block. By studying the ancient layout of the prison, engaging in discreet inquiries, or spotting subtle navigational marks along the walls, they work to determine the underworks beneath the prison is the safest route to where the legendary Archmage is confined. The PCs must breach into the underworks, a shadowy sewer-like warren that skirts around the most heavily defended posts in the prison. Whether by deceiving the guards, forcing open barricades, or skillfully disarming complex gratings, overcoming this final obstacle ushers them into the next encounter area. At the end of Phase 2, the PCs reach the Old Cistern, a 25-foot wide dead-end reservoir within ancient sewer tunnels. The humid, cold air here hints at the presence of an undead inhabitant. There's a 5-foot shaft on the west side, high in the ceiling, which hints at a route upward to Aelthian's remote prison cell. Lurking in the deep water is the Clacktail, a dangerous undead amalgamation of bones that ambushes the PCs on sight. Defeating the Clacktail causes its body to melt away. Successfully overcoming the Clacktail grants the PCs an edge point, easing their escape in the next phase of the infiltration. After navigating the labyrinthine underworks, the PCs emerge into a narrow, cell-lined corridor leading almost directly to Aelthian's prison. There, within a force energy cube that makes him appear as a ghostly figure encased in a glass coffin, Aelthian's soul is split from the world by 3 formidable barriers that act as complex traps: a locked amaranthite door, 2 walls of solidified void, and the Force Coffin itself. Once the PCs get through the barriers and destroy the Force Coffin, Aelthian's voice returns at full strength. While his soul is immobile, he momentarily regains his voice and manages to convey the following to the PCs. "You are not who I expected, but I can sense greatness in you. Take me from this place. I can help once we return to Kyonin, but before we go, I beg you, find the Warden's chambers, set free the tormented souls. Do not leave them behind." At this point, the PCs have a choice to make. They can start Phase 3 of the infiltration, attempting to escape with the Aelthian soul, or they can go to the Warden's Den. There is a possibility they may not have learned where the Warden's Den is in the prison yet, which would mean they have to spend more time in the prison mapping its corridors. They may have already drawn enough attention to themselves that the Warden is actively hunting them and trying to take them prisoner. The Warden's Den does not have to be explored in order to succeed in their mission of returning with the Aelthian soul. In Phase 3, after rescuing Aelthian's soul, or if forced to flee from a relentless warden due to accumulating too many awareness points, the PCs must race to escape the clutches of the oubliette. They navigate a twisting maze of side corridors where every shadow offers both refuge and danger. Relying on their survival skills to backtrack through the labyrinth, they employ stealth to avoid detection, and when cornered, swiftly strike down any guard that dares pursue them. If they have mapped the prison, they can gain a crucial advantage in their escape. It becomes much easier. Every step in this final dash is a test of their ingenuity and teamwork as they strive to vanish into the darkness before the enemy closes in. If the decision is made to explore the Warden's Den, the Python's chambers lie deep beneath the amaranthine oubliette, accessible via spiraling stairwell descending a 600-foot shaft. While the Python spends time here, he frequently patrols the oubliette or ventures beyond the prison, and the Python is not here at this time, which is very fortunate for the PCs. He is a level 23 Archfiend, well beyond the party's capabilities. At this time, combat against this exiled Archdevil should not take place. If the PCs decide to return at a later time to put an end to this creature, the Python stat block is presented in the book. The Warden's Den consists of several key locations. The Audience Chamber, a grand chamber where the Python meets underlings and visitors, often making them wait to the brink of starvation. This room is empty other than the Python's enormous pillow big enough for an elephant. Hidden within the massive cushion is an 8th rank wand of Create Food. The Python's temple is a dark sanctuary where the Python reminisces on his past as an Archdevil. 4 corrupted psychopomp Morignas guard the sigil of ancient Avernus. They attack any intruders and fight to the death. Soul Storage is a prison for the souls awaiting consumption by the Python. Freeing these spirits, including an angel, a vengeful devil, a champion of Regathiel, an elven banshee, and a dwarven heretic, can award the players with healing, edge points, the knowledge that the Python's true name is Typhon, lowered awareness points, and an encounter with the Banshee. The Warden's office is a chamber containing hidden portals to Avernus and records detailing thousands of years of oubliette operations. Investigating these records grants knowledge of the prison and up to 4 edge points. The Warden's Stoop. This is where the entrance to the Python's extra-dimensional lair is located. His extra-dimensional palace is beyond the scope of this adventure. The Python, a level 23 entity, is an overwhelming force best used as a looming threat rather than a direct adversary. If the PCs rack up enough awareness points during the infiltration, it is possible they can grab his attention, drawing him out to hunt them. If encountered, he aims to capture rather than kill, potentially leading to a new infiltration-based escape scenario. After escaping the prison, Aelthian's soul thanks the PCs for their choices in saving him. He grants upon them the ability to cast Dimensional Excision and Trim the Blight, 2 spells to help in the fight against Tanglebriar. He also grants his knowledge of Treerazer's weaknesses. This is treated as if the PCs had critically succeeded at a recall knowledge check on Treerazer. It is suggested to give as detailed information about Treerazer as possible when answering the questions posed by the players. That way they have solid info that can help them once they are in a confrontation with Treerazer. At this time, the Elven gods decide that the PC's heroic accomplishments warrant divine rewards, and they grant an incredible boon to the party. They merge their heroic legacies with that of the ancient elven heroes past. The potent magical items gifted by Queen Talandia in the previous adventure each transform into a potent elven artifact. This transformation allows the players to customize their artifact by choosing an apex attribute, boosting the chosen attribute modifier by 2. Also choosing a heroic skill, which boosts the chosen skill by 4, and gaining the heroic recover ability. When the PC's dying value would reach an amount sufficient to kill them, the artifact spends its recovery point and the PC instead increases their doomed value by 1 and stabilizes at 0 hit points. These artifacts must be invested each day to gain these benefits. War Interlude 3, A Warning in the Lines, occurs once the PCs return from the Void. As the PCs return to Golarion, a mysterious surge of magic ripples through Kyonin's ley lines, a subtle omen of Treerazer's impending surprise attack on Iadara via the Witch Bowl. This magical disturbance may reveal itself as a potent vision during their journey home. If the PCs opt not to spend a triumph point, each time the PCs spend a triumph point during the rest of Chapter 2, they must attempt a DC 11 flat check. On a failure, that triumph point is lost, and the war interlude proceeds as if they spent 0 points. However, by spending 1 triumph point, Elven spellcasters discern the surge's true nature, allowing Iadara to ready itself for the siege, ensuring that future triumph points can be used without possibility of being wasted. At the start of Chapter 2, the PCs are asked to return to Iadara to get some well-deserved rest. Queen Talandia summons them to a grand palace overlooking the Elven capital, eager to hear the report on the Amaranthian oubliette. She listens with grave concern, troubled by Aelthian's suffering, yet marvels at the evolution of the legacy items she entrusted to them. As the conversation shifts to the strange magical surges in Kyonin's ley lines and what it means, an unsettling realization takes hold. As without warning, the sky darkens, not with storm clouds, but with writhing tendrils of foul green mist. A putrid stench of decay fills the air as the ground quakes beneath their feet. At the city's southern edge, reality ripples and splits, birthing a colossal diseased tree whose roots churn into the Endawar River, forming a poisoned trench. The shimmering wards of Iadara struggle to repel the incursion, but the truth is undeniable. Treerazer's lair, the infamous Witch Bowl, has emerged in the heart of Kyonin, bringing an invasion unlike any before. War Interlude 4, Rise of the Witch Bowl, should be ran at this time. Tanglebriar's toxic haze darkens Iadara's skyline as the ominous Witch Bowl emerges, sending shockwaves of fear through the city. If the PCs do not expend a triumph point, panic erupts, riots break out, and widespread mayhem leaves the city in disarray, draining vital resources that Queen Talandia had hoped to use against the impending siege. However, by spending 1 triumph point, the PCs leverage their recent triumphs and reassuring presence to quell the fear. Instead of chaos, the citizens calmly activate emergency drills they've been rehearsing throughout the war, stabilizing the situation. Queen Talandia remains resolute as the Witch Bowl looms over Iadara. She explains that while the city was always a target, she thinks Treerazer's sudden arrival has left him drained, forcing him to delay his assault as he and his army did not immediately attack. In an ironic twist, his reckless magic has delivered him into their grasp, sparing them a perilous march through Tanglebriar. With the siege of Iadara imminent, the Queen tasks the PCs with a bold mission: penetrate the Witch Bowl before Treerazer can fully recover. The siege of Iadara is scheduled to take place starting the day after the Witch Bowl arrives. The PCs have 6 days from the start of the siege to infiltrate the Witch Bowl and attempt to disrupt enough of its internal workings to break the siege and defeat Treerazer. While they are infiltrating the Witch Bowl, the siege of Iadara is ran in the background as war interludes that take place each day. There are 6 war interludes that represent the siege of Iadara. War interludes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. On day 1, only Interlude 5 is ran. Then, on each following day, Interlude 5 and the next interlude are ran together. So, on day 1, run Interlude 5. On day 2, Interlude 5 and 6 are run. On day 3, run Interludes 5 and 7. On day 4, run Interludes 5 and 8. This continues each day until day 6, where Interludes 5 and 10 occur. These war interludes allow the PCs to attempt to accrue victory points called torment points, and the more of these they accumulate during the siege, the better their chances will be when they face Treerazer. As the war interludes progress, Tanglebriar earns siege points whenever the PCs fail to spend a triumph point during each interlude. As soon as Tanglebriar reaches 10 siege points, Iadara falls and the war is lost. Iadara also automatically falls the day after day 6 of the siege. In Book 1, Whispers in the Dirt, the PCs worked to secure the Encarthan alliance between Kyonin and 6 other nations. The PCs begin the siege with 1 torment point for every nation that signed Article 2, the Mutual Aid Agreement. This also grants them an equal number of delay days that can be used to delay the siege from moving forward. On a delay day, no war interludes are ran, giving the PCs 1 extra day to complete their infiltration mission. The siege of Iadara unfolds over 6 brutal days, with demons, corrupted fae, fungal horrors, and cultists launching relentless attacks. Each day, Tanglebriar's forces push deeper, earning siege points, while the elven forces struggle to hold the line. The invasion begins with street skirmishes, and by the second day, Vrolikai demons seize the city's highest points, turning elves into ghouls with their death-stealing gaze. Brimarak demons set entire districts ablaze on the 3rd day, while on the 4th, the Witch Bowl extends its corrupted roots into the city, causing buildings and trees to collapse into sinkholes. The PCs can counter these disasters by spending triumph points, negating Tanglebriar's siege points, and preventing the city's swift downfall. Keeping a list of all the outcomes of each war interlude from Book 2 will be very important, because spending triumph points in specific interludes from Book 2 can prevent some of these disasters without the need to spend triumph points, and also grants the PCs torment points. On the 5th day, the demons strike at the heart of Elven heritage, the Savarian Stone, damaging its structure and killing hundreds. Spending a triumph point can rally lower-level heroes to defend it, but without intervention, the artifact is buried under tons of rubble, and Tanglebriar gains 2 siege points. If the legendary elven ranger Shalelu and Isanda survived in Book 2, the elves automatically triumph in this battle. However, the true horror arrives on day 6, the final day, as a fully recovered Treerazer himself leads a catastrophic assault. Thousands perish as his forces rampage through the streets, culminating in the capture and brutal sacrifice of Queen Talandia. By spending a triumph point, the PCs can reduce the death toll and prevent the Queen's initial capture, but no matter what, Treerazer returns later in the night, under cover of darkness, abducting the Queen and sealing Iadara's fate. If the city falls, either from the Queen's sacrifice or Tanglebriar amassing 10 siege points, the war is lost, and Treerazer begins hunting the PCs with an overwhelming force that the PCs have no chance of overcoming. Wise PCs flee the region, recognizing that they have lost the war. To prevent this grim fate, the PCs must infiltrate the Witch Bowl and strike at its core. Queen Talandia entrusts them with a final mission, believing that while Treerazer may not truly be slain, disrupting his fortress could break the siege and turn the tide of war. The battle for Kyonin is at its climax, and only the PCs stand between victory and utter devastation. As the siege begins, the Queen reveals that spies have pinpointed 5 targets of opportunity within the Witch Bowl: the source of its mobility, the source of its teleportation distortion, the source of its pollution, the central workshop where Jaharlu spores are engineered, and the location of the missing elven scouts. advising that rescuing the scouts first may provide aid in navigating the inside of the Witch Bowl. Once the PCs have wreaked sufficient havoc on these targets, they must locate the Witch Bowl sanctum to confront Treerazer directly. The Witch Bowl is Treerazer's mobile fortress, a massive, diseased tree created when he sacrificed and corrupted the soul of the oldest and largest arboreal in Ferrani Forest. Though the Spore Queen's work could have granted it instantaneous teleportation, her defeat forced Treerazer to use her unfinished creation to launch the siege of Iadara. This left both him and the Witch Bowl drained, as he now remains in its inner sanctum to recover for his final assault on day 6 of the siege. The Witch Bowl is a sprawling, nightmarish fortress where reality bends to Treerazer's will, forming its own demiplane. Its twisting tunnels and chambers weave through its corrupted trunk, roots, and branches, and its very walls regenerate as long as Treerazer lives. Teleportation fails here, leaving the PCs stranded in hostile territory. The floors, slick and spongy yet as firm as stone, add to the fortress's alien nature, reinforcing the Witch Bowl's living, ever-shifting horror. The infiltration of the Witch Bowl uses the infiltration subsystem, and each infiltration round encompasses 1 hour. Before each day's infiltration, the PCs can take advantage of various preparation tactics. They might bribe a Tanglebriar contact or recruit a new one, gaining advantages in navigating enemy ranks. Gathering rumors about the Witch Bowl's key locations or scouting enemy movements grants further insight, while securing cultist disguises can aid them in reaching their final destination unnoticed. Each successful preparation activity provides edge points, crucial for overcoming the infiltration obstacles that stand between them and their objectives. Once the PCs begin, they must navigate through the invading army to the Witch Bowl. Enter the Witch Bowl and navigate to the 5 targets of opportunity to disrupt the inner workings. Then, make their way to the Witch Bowl sanctum where Treerazer resides. The 3 infiltration obstacles behind enemy lines, navigate the Witch Bowl, and enter the sanctum all represent their journey between key points of interest. Once the PCs overcome an obstacle, they can enter these points of interest and targets of opportunity, which are ran as standard encounters and exploration in their respective areas. The infiltration starts as the PCs must first sneak behind enemy lines, making their way through the army encampments and polluted environs that surround the Witch Bowl, either to reach its entrance or to make their way back to the relative safety of the city. This journey is represented by the behind enemy lines infiltration obstacle that requires 2 infiltration points to overcome, through stealth to sneak behind enemy lines, deception to act like they belong behind enemy lines, or perception to keep an eye out for chances to move forward between patrols. From somewhere within the Witch Bowl, all attempts at teleportation magic are being disrupted throughout Iadara and the surrounding lands, so the PCs must resort to more mundane means of travel to and from the Witch Bowl. When they overcome behind enemy lines for the first time, they are able to discover an entrance but must defeat the Guardian here to proceed. The Witch Bowl's diseased roots extend into the Endawar River, twisting the landscape and flooding Iadara's outskirts with toxic runoff. The once pure waters churn with filth, forming a swampy wasteland reminiscent of the blasted tarn in Tanglebriar. Amid this rotting mire, a dark opening gapes between the gnarled roots of the Witch Bowl, an entrance into Treerazer's fortress. The roots themselves act as bridges, slick with decay, while the surrounding mud and mold make movement difficult. Lurking beneath the polluted water is Valmalaroth, the rancorous Wrath, a gargantuan amphibious demon and one of Treerazer's fiercest champions. With 3 unblinking eyes barely visible amid the floating filth, he waits to ambush intruders. If unnoticed, he strikes first, using his immense bulk, toxic filth, and fearsome stench to overwhelm foes. His thunderous roars and violent thrashing attract nearby demons and cultists, turning the battle into a spectacle. Yet, if the PCs manage to slay him, his death shatters the morale of Treerazer's onlooking forces, sending the onlookers fleeing rather than risk the same fate. Now, the PCs can enter the Witch Bowl to navigate its twisting, dank corridors in search of the targets of opportunity. The PCs make their way through the Witch Bowl's twisted interiors toward a chosen location. The exploration of the Witch Bowl's interior is represented as the Navigate the Witch Bowl obstacle. To overcome this obstacle, they need to accumulate 4 infiltration points and can use occultism or religion to understand the supernatural nature of the Witch Bowl's interior, survival to apply classic methods of labyrinth navigation and to avoid backtracking, or perception to correctly interpret subtle contextual clues that lead toward their goal. If they have directions to the location, such as by learning them from a rescued scout, or have visited the location before, they need only 2 infiltration points to overcome this obstacle. Once they overcome Navigate the Witch Bowl, the PCs can enter the area of whichever target of opportunity they were searching for. They can choose whatever order they would like to visit these areas. I will be overviewing them in the order they are presented in the book. The Fang Fungus Prison is where the captured elven scouts are being held. In this chamber, dark brown wooden walls are marred by spiky, fang-like fungal growths that cover the walls, floor, and ceiling. 4 coffin-sized fungal cages cling to the walls, each ensnaring one of Kyonin's missing scouts, accomplished rangers or rogues who infiltrated the Witch Bowl. There are no guardians in this area, though the environment itself is treacherous. Every time a creature strides or climbs through this space, it suffers 2d6 piercing damage. Each fungal cage holds a scout who is slowly being digested by the Witch Bowl. Vandalon, the foolhardy ranger, is already dead on the first day and is absorbed by the Witch Bowl at sunset. Undrio, a stoic rogue, is unconscious and perishes at dawn on day 2. Susiel, a humorless ranger, is similarly unconscious and dies on day 3. And Elesiar, a meticulous rogue, is the only conscious victim, their agonized screams echoing until they, too, perish at dawn on the 4th day. The fate of these scouts is time-sensitive. Each day of delay risks the complete absorption of one scout. Each rescued scout can provide helpful direction to another target of opportunity, but the survivors will be too traumatized and weak to fight. Keeping track of the scout's absorption is important as it will affect the unfolding situation in the Witch Bowl sanctum and yield up to 3 triumph points depending on how many are saved. The Witch Bowl's heart is a 50-foot diameter spherical chamber. The heart is a 25-foot diameter fungus-caked sphere of knotted wood whose tangled roots and branches ceaselessly grind and splinter. This relentless motion is the manifestation of the corrupted soul of the region's largest arboreal, captured by Treerazer long ago, and it grants the Witch Bowl its mobility. PCs can traverse the lower part of the chamber, though it counts as difficult terrain, and must use athletics to climb the steep walls, with flight being the safest option to traverse this area. Guarding the heart, a Vansidiath demon perches atop the sphere, flanked by 5 Seraptus demons clinging to the walls. The demons launch a coordinated aerial assault. Meanwhile, the Witch Bowl's heart itself poses a complex environmental hazard. It lashes out with spiky, poisonous limbs. It can be disabled either by exorcising the corrupted spirit or by deactivating hidden runes with thievery checks. When destroyed or disabled, the heart releases the trapped soul in a burst of spiritual energy that inflicts massive spirit damage to all demons. Disabling the heart causes the Witch Bowl to lose its mobility, a short-term triumph that earns the PCs 2 torment points. The rift portals can be found in an ovoid chamber with 7 alcoves along its walls, each harboring a vortex of gray mist swirling around a tiny dark rift with a unique rune scratched behind each alcove. Bulges in the wood resembling diseased welts mar the surfaces, and at the center a deformed 6-foot-tall mushroom stands. Wispy vapor lines connect the mushroom to each alcove and the rifts, which are maintained by 4 hidden rift pulpers that burst to attack intruders. These rifts are linked to portals from 7 demon lords who lend Treerazer their fiendish energy, and in return they siphon small amounts of Treerazer's corruption. The mushroom is the source of a teleportation disrupting network. Disabling it not only stops the network but also prevents the Witch Bowl from countering teleportation. When active, the network unleashes demonic beams each round and unleashes demonic shrieks that instill fear in all nearby. If the network is destroyed, the mushroom melts away and earns the PC's 1 torment point, and temporarily disrupts the Witch Bowl's teleportation interference. The Jaharlu Lab is a grotesque indoor garden where fungal growths cover dark wooden walls, and vines and mold hang from a 30-foot ceiling. Two pools of green-blue sludge ripple on the floor, and a ridge separates a cluttered workshop with benches. The air is toxic to most, inflicting poison damage unless breath is held or dispersed by magical winds. Investigating the lab reveals it was set up like an alchemical lab for engineering Jaharlu spores. The walls have large fungal filaments channeling unholy energy. These filaments can be destroyed with effort or specific types of damage. Two colossal pterotrichuses guard the lab from the ceiling, ready to attack intruders. Among the workbenches, hidden under the southeastern table, a spiky seed pod is a uniquely corrupted arboreal seed that functions as a planar key to the Witch Bowl's interior. If the rift portals have been disabled, the PCs may be able to plane shift into the Witch Bowl using this planar key. Destroying the fungal filaments along the walls disrupts the energy network powering the Witch Bowl, earning the PCs 1 torment point. In the fungal forges, the air is thick with toxic spores and reeking of decay. 5 15-foot alcoves each house a different colored spherical fungus, a green, yellow, orange, black, and purple forge, within which decaying bodies of sacrificed elves and other victims heap up. These forges convert the flesh and souls of their victims into potent toxins, polluting the water, food, soil, air, and even thoughts around them. The room itself is hazardous. Any creature that is not demonic or fungal takes 5d6 spirit damage at the end of each round unless the forges are dismantled. Guarding each forge are the Forgers of Tanglebriar, corrupted fae in moldy wooden armor, armed with twisted, pitchfork-like weapons. They demand that the intruders offer their flesh and souls to fuel the forges, attacking relentlessly when refused. Disabling or destroying a forge, each of which, when neutralized, reduces the room's spirit damage by 1d6, requires overcoming its wholly damaging effects. Additionally, valuable residue, tears of death poison, can be harvested from the forges. If the PCs manage to disable all 5 forges, they not only weaken the source of Tanglebriar's corruption, but also earn 1 torment point. The Witch Bowl's sanctum and its outer chambers are the most lethal areas of the fortress. Here, Treerazer controls the Witch Bowl, channels eldritch energies, stores his greatest treasures, and keeps the remnants of the Spore Queen's work that enable a one-time teleportation attack on Iadara. Now he remains inside, recovering from that taxing effort, and is vulnerable until the siege's final day when he re-emerges to abduct Queen Talandia. The PCs can reach the sanctum entrance by overcoming the Enter the Sanctum obstacle. Once inside the sanctum, all play shifts to exploration and encounter mode. Heading directly into the sanctum before disrupting the targets of opportunity is suicide. The encounters in these areas are all extreme and severe encounters. But if the PCs have caused disruptions within the Witch Bowl, these encounters are drastically reduced in difficulty. The sanctum entrance can be found at the end of a long spiraling staircase. The PCs enter a curving chamber with a 50-foot ceiling where enormous shelf fungi cling to the walls and form slick, unstable platforms over a yawning rift. Space echoes with creaking wood and a sickly sweet stench of decay from scattered corpses on the fungal shelves. While flight is the safest way through, PCs can leap between fungi with acrobatics checks and athletics checks to avoid a deadly fall. Hidden among the decaying bodies of arboreals, giant owls, wasps, unicorns, and other fallen allies, 4 rift weasels lie in wait. These scavengers burst forth to attack, fighting fiercely until only one remains, which then flees if reduced below 100 hit points. Notably, if the PCs destroyed the rift portal network, 2 of these rift weasels abandoned the area, lowering the threat level to moderate. The marshalling chamber features flat, featureless walls and a 30-foot ceiling, a stark contrast to the Witch Bowl's organic curves. Hidden passages lie behind cubbyholes on the southern wall and a massive archway to the east, while the air reeks of decaying flesh. This room serves as Treerazer's marshalling yard for his high-ranking demons, though it feels eerily empty in his absence. Along the southern wall, 4 circular boreholes emit a putrid stench. Any creature ending its turn nearby must succeed on a fortitude save or become sickened. When PCs investigate, clogged, gelatinous fungi erupt suddenly, unleashing 4 fungal abominations that attack with expanding toxic spore clouds, forcing foes to take poison damage. If the PCs already destroyed the fungal filaments on the walls of the Jaharlu lab, these abominations are weakened, reducing the encounter's difficulty to moderate. To the south, the chamber holding the soul engines is dominated by a pulsating network of thin white mold filaments on the floor and a 30-foot ceiling, while thick, dripping fungus and lacy film conceals the walls. 2 large, spherical mushroom-like growths on the southern wall house ghostly screaming forms that hint at the sacrificed souls powering the Witch Bowl, funneled through fang fungus cages to trap the most potent soul essences for decades. A massive fungal engine powering the Witch Bowl's magic, spanning wall to ceiling, harvests souls and memories from Tanglebriar's dead. This is a complex magical trap, and when triggered, it unleashes a psychic shriek that damages nearby non-fungal creatures, summons Vincidieth demons, and expels toxic spores, inflicting severe poison damage, with shroud mosses occasionally detaching to attack. Disabling or destroying the engine by removing key nodes or destroying its 2 central mushrooms grants the PC's 2 torment points and significantly weakens the Witch Bowl. The Gordwalk is a 20-foot wide moist passage where thick, dripping slime and spongy mold create a foreboding atmosphere. As the PCs traverse this tunnel, the soft wood of its walls appears to come alive, undulating like muscles of a giant creature, ready to close in and crush intruders as if swallowing them whole. This trap, known as the Gorging Passage Hazard, suddenly constricts when a creature passes the midway point, unleashing devastatingly lethal bludgeoning and acid damage. The trap can be disabled through legendary thievery or nature checks to remove its hidden sensors or call upon primal energies. Notably, if the Witch Bowl's heart was destroyed, this perilous trap is rendered inert, allowing safe passage through the tunnel. The room, known as the Curtain, is a vast chamber bathed in an eerie purple glow. The ceiling soars nearly 100 feet, while the floor is divided into 3 15-foot tiers studded with slick, shifting black spikes that can slice through flesh. A powerful Shamhazian demon presides atop the highest tier, flanked by 2 Imvath demons and 6 Seraptis demons on lower levels. The demons coordinate their assault, Seraptis engaging in melee and Imvaths casting ranged spells, the Shamazian using its paralyzing gaze from above, and descends to fight in melee once its health drops below 250 hit points. Separating this chamber from the inner sanctum is a 10-foot thick fungal curtain, a towering violet wall of moss, lichens, mold, and mushrooms. This complex environmental hazard barrier must be hacked through by pruning its 6 sensory bulbs with successful nature checks 6 times, or by exercising its fiendish energies with successful religion checks twice. Damaging it or critical failure causes the curtain to emit a shrill decay that releases flesh-eating spores, inflicting poison and void damage on nearby non-fungal or non-demon creatures. If the fungal forges are disabled, 4 few demons reside here, lowering the encounter to moderate, and the curtain's defenses are weakened, making it easier for the PCs to breach. The Witch Bowl's sanctum is a sprawling, haze-filled chamber. A 20-foot diameter cocoon woven from fungus and thorny branches hangs 10 feet above the floor of uneven, root-laden terrain. The chamber's walls and high ceiling are studded with shifting, slick spikes, and a ramp of glistening plant matter curves around the cocoon, while scattered treasure lies beneath amid mold and decay. A toxic miasma of spores and fumes fills the air, forcing non-demon creatures to hold their breath or risk becoming stupefied and sickened. A keen PC may discern an immense humanoid form curled deep within the cocoon, Treerazer himself, recovering from his failed teleportation attempt, though he remains inactive. Guarding this sanctum are over a half a dozen formidable demons led by Zibure, a fungal corrupted Vralakai demon armed with toxic magical knives and accompanied by Vincidieth and Seraptis allies. Zibure and her retinue fight to the death to protect the cocoon, and if the PCs retreat without defeating her, she can summon reinforcements within minutes, ensuring that the chamber remains a deadly stronghold. After Zibere and her demons are defeated, the PCs have a brief respite of 1 round before a thunderous blast signals Treerazer's next move. Channeling his demonic will through the fungi of his cocoon, Treerazer manifests a spore spawn, a moldering fungal duplicate with lashing tentacles that mimics his form but lacks his favored weapon, the Black Axe. The spore spawn hisses for the PCs to surrender, then attacks relentlessly, favoring melee strikes and using a wall of thorns to block any escape attempts. If the PCs retreat, the creature returns to the cocoon, ready to be re-manifested after 10 minutes. This severe encounter escalates as additional demons and fungal abominations are summoned from other areas of the Witch Bowl on subsequent rounds, intensifying the threat the longer the battle ensues. If the PCs have disabled all key targets of opportunity, the Spore Spawn has the weak template and also slowed during the initial 3 rounds of combat. Still, its connection to Treerazer's mind makes it a dangerous proxy, and defeating it is crucial to halting the relentless siege of Iadara. After the Spore Spawn is defeated, the Witch Bowl convulses violently as it starts to destabilize, knocking PCs prone with a powerful shock. As Black Axe cleaves through the cocoon, Treerazer emerges, drenched in slime and moldering fluids, his face twisted, not with anger, but with panic. The demise of his Spore Spawn sends destructive ripples through the Witch Bowl, especially if the PCs have already disabled multiple targets of opportunity, and triggers the sudden creation of a shared mindscape. Before anyone can react, a blinding headache strikes, plunging both the PCs and Treerazer into darkness. The victory over the Spore Spawn triggers the end of the siege. No further war interludes occur, and any remaining untriggered interludes reward the PCs with torment points, reflecting their swift actions that have frustrated Treerazer and minimized the damage to Iadara. This will take us into Chapter 3. The destruction of Treerazer's Spore Spawn is the nail in the coffin for the Witch Bowl. The PCs have caused enough disruptions to the fortress that the magic powering the Witch Bowl begins collapsing and imploding. But before the fortress crumbles, time halts, and both the PCs and Treerazer are flung into Hollow Rock, a vast mindscape born from their intertwined legacies and the Witch Bowl's destruction. In this surreal realm, time stands still in Galarian while it flows normally within Hollow Rock. The PCs and Treerazer initially exist in separate but mirrored mindscapes, one shaped by Treerazer's memories and the other by theirs. As they explore Hollow Rock, they relive Treerazer's key moments while he experiences their own, warping their past victories under his sinister influence. To escape and return to reality, the PCs must navigate this shifting dreamscape and meet specific conditions before the Witch Bowl's collapse becomes final. As the PCs regain consciousness, they find themselves exactly where they stood before in the Sanctum, but the battlefield has changed. Treerazer's cocoon lies in shattered fragments, and he is nowhere to be seen. The exit has transformed into an arc of twisted fungi and mold, now sealed by solid wood. The bodies of fallen demons, along with their gear and a vast hoard of treasure, remains untouched and can be looted by the PCs if they wish. The PCs, along with Treerazer, are trapped in Hollow Rock, a mindscape demiplane where time stands still and escape via magic or movement is impossible. Successful knowledge checks reveal their predicament. The only apparent exit is a fungal archway which, when approached, reveals shifting visions of 6 key moments from Treerazer's past. These memories, each a unique, unsettling landscape, hold the key to escaping Hollow Rock. By identifying these locations and focusing on one together, the PCs can transport themselves into its mindscape. To return to Galarian, they must navigate and potentially reshape Treerazer's memories. Immediately upon entering a memory, each PC instinctively knows that they can exit it whenever they wish simply by moving away from the location for 1 minute. If the area includes a map, the PCs must spend that minute moving beyond the map's borders. No additional dangers face them during this minute of travel. After spending a minute leaving the area, the PCs reappear in a space adjacent to the portal back in the Mindscape version of the Witch Bowl's inner sanctum. The PCs also immediately understand that once they exit a memory for any reason, that memory vanishes for them and they cannot return to it. Each time the PCs exit a memory, it collapses, triggering a disturbing shift in their own recollections as Treerazer manipulates their past in a parallel mindscape. Each memory includes a Treerazer's retaliation effect, altering their perception in unsettling ways. The party can spend a torment point to negate these effects, understanding Treerazer's attempt but remaining unaffected. Otherwise, each PC must make a DC 40 will save. Success leaves them unchanged, but failure warps their memories, imposing a lasting stupefied condition. A critical failure extends this distortion to those who knew them, weakening faith in the heroes and costing them a triumph point. In the first memory, the PCs find themselves in a mindscape of Jaharlu, Sith Vazug's domain, where they witness Treerazer's ancient defeat at the hands of Sith Vazug, who is Treerazer's own father. As time shifts forward, they explore the desolated battlefield, now home to monstrous Clipoth Thulgants that they must defeat in battle. The air is thick with spores and oppressive dread, forcing them to resist sickness and fear during the fight. After defeating the Clipoth, the PCs experience intrusive memories of Treerazer's failure and shame. As they investigate, Sith Vazug manifests, intrigued by their actions. Though unable to harm them directly, he offers to answer 4 questions, providing insights into Treerazer's weaknesses and their shared entrapment in Holorok's memories. If the PCs impress him, he reveals Treerazer's old name, Shugmundisug. If the PCs say this name in the final battle with Treerazer, he takes a -3 penalty to his saving throws, perception checks, and skill checks during the fight. With the Demon Lord Sith Vazug's departure, they are free to leave this haunting memory behind. In the second memory, the PCs find themselves in a mindscape depicting a valley in southern Kyonin. They're witnessing a pivotal moment in Tanglebriar's corruption. They watch as Treerazer sacrifices an immense arboreal, its blood and soul feeding the creation of the monstrous Witch Bowl. As the Witch Bowl thunders into the forest, spreading corruption, the vision fades, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Upon approaching the sacrificial altar, 2 grotesque second spawns, twisted remnants of the sacrificed arboreal, rise from the ruined deadfalls and attack. If the PCs disabled the Witch Bowl's heart earlier, one of the creatures crumbles, reducing the fight's intensity. After their victory, the PCs can soothe the tormented spirit of the sacrificed arboreal, which will grant them a +4 bonus to saves, and Treerazer gets a -4 penalty to saves against the Witch Bowl collapsing effects in the final climax battle. As they exit this memory, Treerazer retaliates by warping their recollections, making them believe they once failed at something deeply personal, an insidious attempt to undermine the resolve before the coming conflict. In the third memory, the PCs witness Treerazer's assault on the Palace of Iadara, where he attempts to corrupt the Severian Stone ages ago. As he strikes through the walls with Black Axe and reaches towards the massive floating crystal, the PCs must act as conduits to warn the elves of Castrovel, altering history in the process. Unlike previous memories, this encounter plays out over 3 10-minute rounds using the diminishing victory point rule in the GM core, with the Severian Stone starting at 6 victory points. The PCs take on spectral or magical forms to hinder Treerazer's corruption, distracting him with spell attacks, bolstering the Severian Stone's defenses with crafting, or enhancing its magic through occultism. Each round, Treerazer drains victory points unless resisted with these checks, and the PCs suffer a painful spiritual backlash in the form of 10d8 spirit damage. If the PCs maintain at least 1 victory point by the end, history shifts. Treerazer remembers the elves arriving much sooner, diminishing his confidence in the battle. With 3 or more victory points, the PCs also gain deeper insight into the Severian Stone, granting them protection from Treerazer's magic. This reduces the DCs for Treerazer's Aura of Corruption by 3 and Defoliation ability by 4, also reducing his spell attack modifier by 4 in the final battle. In the fourth memory, the PCs witness the desperate last stand of Aelthian, the elven wizard who attempted to banish Treerazer from Galarian. They find themselves at Arabrecht, a magnificent elven structure surrounded by the corruption of Tanglebriar, moments before its destruction. Aelthian, performing a powerful ritual, nearly succeeds in binding Treerazer, but the magic begins to recoil, threatening to consume him and his home instead. The PCs, as part of the ritual's energy, must strengthen its power. Over 3 1-minute rounds, they can bolster the magic with Arcana, attack Treerazer to keep him distracted, or use raw force to tighten the binding magic. Meanwhile, Treerazer's struggle causes backlash, forcing the PCs to resist void energy that threatens to drain their vitality. Regardless of their efforts, the ritual ultimately fails. Arbrecht collapses in a reverse explosion of darkness, becoming the Dim Crater. Treerazer is wounded but survives, and Aelthian's soul is lost to the Amaranthine Oubliette. However, if the PCs earn at least 5 victory points, they strengthen their bond with Aelthian's spirit and the heroic artifacts they wield, allowing them to call upon the spirits of ancient elven heroes to grant them resistance 5 to all damage done by Treerazer in the final battle. Upon leaving this memory, Treerazer strikes back once more. The PCs recall past battles against powerful foes, but those who fail their saves now remember these enemies surviving, their triumphs erased, and the looming specter of past failures returning to haunt them. The fifth memory places the PCs deep beneath Tanglebriar in the Darklands cavern where Treerazer and his allies cultivated the first Jaharlu spores, bioweapons designed to devastate Kyonin. The scene unfolds in a time-lapse vision, showing how these spores were grown within massive fungi, then transported through glowing magenta mists into underground networks. During this phase, the PCs can attempt to understand and analyze the process with high difficulty checks in herbalism lore, nature, or perception to gain victory points. If they succeed, devastating feedback rips through the fungal network, causing Treerazer to start the final battle with 500 hit points instead of 550 hit points, and reduces his regeneration to 30 instead of 50. As the vision ends, the PCs materialize in the cavern and feel an overwhelming presence watching them. Moments later, the spawn of Jaharlu, a towering tripod-like fungal fiend, descends from the darkness above and attacks. This powerful creature hovers 20 feet off the ground, using wide-reaching primal magic and devastating tentacle strikes to assault the party. Upon its defeat, the entire cavern rapidly decays, leaving behind nothing but silence and ruin. In the sixth memory, the PCs find themselves in the Plaza Elkhaven Lodge, a location they've previously visited. Surrounded by ruins, the central platform holds a stone altar where the Spore Queen prepares to perform a dark ritual to sacrifice Aravashmiel, an elven hero, to empower the Witch Bowl's teleportation magic. The PCs, now immaterial observers, have 3 rounds to subtly influence the ritual. They can attempt religion, performance, or intimidation checks to disrupt the process and earn victory points. If the PCs earn enough victory points, they manage to free Aravashniel's soul, causing the cultists to fall into chaos. Though this false memory doesn't change the past, it strengthens the PC's connection with the spirits of fallen elves, especially those lost during the Spore War. The spirits cause Treerazer to have a -3 penalty to his AC, his Black Axe strikes, and his Jaws strike in the final battle. Aravashniel's spirit rises to thank them before departing. If they fail, they witness the tragic sacrifice, filled with despair. Upon exiting, each PC is haunted by the memory of a loved one's death, which, on a failed save, they are convinced was their fault. After experiencing the 6 memories, the PCs are abruptly pulled back to Golarion in a jarring, nightmarish transition. They are restored as if they had just completed a full night's rest, ready to make any necessary preparations, including preparing spells or abilities. In the blink of an eye, they find themselves standing at the edge of Iadara, with the city's southern sections in ruins and the massive, threatening Witch Bowl looming above them. The PCs then realize they are standing side by side with ally NPCs they have adventured with throughout this campaign. As the PCs take in their surroundings, the Witch Bowl begins to collapse in a catastrophic chain reaction, imploding and spraying toxic spores and razor-sharp debris. Amid the chaos, Treerazer appears on the opposite end of the battlefield. The final confrontation is at hand, and the PCs must face the nightmare that has plagued the nation in a battle for survival. In the epic climax of the Spore War, the PCs face Treerazer, the Lord of the Blasted Tarn, in a battle that promises to be a true test of their strength. Even with PCs at 20th level, Treerazer alone would be an overwhelming threat, and he is not alone. His vast demonic army stands at his side. However, the PCs are not without aid. They are joined by the Elven army and other allies gathered throughout their journey. Before the battle begins, take a moment to adjust Treerazer's stats. The PC's successes through the memories in Holorock can weaken Treerazer's power, lowering his effective level from 25 and giving the party a better chance of victory. Once the battle starts, Queen Talandia fights by the PC's side in the encounter. All other allies fight the demon hordes and cultists in the background with the Elven army. As the chaotic final battle erupts, Treerazer stands tall and terrifying, his presence commanding the battlefield. The Witch Bowl is collapsing and violently imploding, which sends shards of shrapnel and shockwaves of energy through the battlefield. With a quick wave of his hand, Treerazer casts Freeze Time, gaining 3 sets of actions. In an instant, his tangled vines from his Tangling Creeper spell erupt across the battlefield, ensnaring the PCs within their grasp. He quickly follows with a Wall of Thorns, a barrier of spiked greenery that cuts across the terrain, limiting the PC's movement and blocking their escape routes. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, Treerazer positions himself strategically near the PCs, ensuring that he can strike with his reactive strike should anyone get too close. Throughout the combat, Treerazer focuses on any of the PCs who caused him the most trouble in the previous round, but he's also keen on spreading his corrupt influence. His aura of corruption pulses as he targets as many PCs as possible, using it to strengthen his defoliation ability and make his blows with Black Axe more devastating. As the fight wears on and his health begins to dwindle, Treerazer reacts by activating Black Axe's Rejuvenation Deforestation, a brutal healing ability where he strikes one of the young living trees dotting the battlefield, restoring much of the damage he's taken. He uses spells like Dispel Magic, Earthbind, Telekinetic Maneuver, and Telekinetic Projectile to hinder the PCs and damaging them or neutralizing their options from afar. Throughout the chaos, he moves with terrifying precision, flying as needed to close the distance and keep the PCs on the defensive. This fight with Treerazer will test the PCs to their limits, and they will need all the aid they can get. At the start of each round, the PCs can call for battlefield aid from one of the Encarthan Alliance allies that signed Article 3 to deploy battlefield resources that take effect immediately and last to the end of the round. Druma helps with well-placed bribes and Drumish spies that have caused betrayal among the enemy forces, sabotaging Treerazer's allies in battle. This distraction infuriates Treerazer, leaving him off guard for the round. On his turn, Treerazer spends one action telepathically berating the betrayers and ordering his loyalists to exact revenge. Knights of Last Wall can help with battlefield medics using magic to bolster the PCs in Queen Talandia, restoring 9d8 hit points to each character. Multhune can help with several Multhuni siege engineers firing upon Treerazer with ballista armed with cold iron bolts. Treerazer takes 10d6 points of piercing damage. Nermathis helps with archers armed with holy longbows, firing a volley of arrows at Treerazer, who takes 5d6 points of holy damage at the start of the round. If Treerazer takes any damage at all, his regeneration is deactivated. Rezmirin helps with hundreds of Rezmiri zealots, rushing into the battlefield to attack Treerazer in a brave but doomed gambit. This causes Treerazer to use his Desiccate spell on them and not the PCs, or spend 2 actions ordering demons into the fray. And Ustalav has Ustalavic necromancers that have hidden a powerful magic symbol on the battlefield, one that can only be triggered by Treerazer. At the start of his turn, he triggers this ward automatically, causing beams of void energy and ghostly shapes to swirl around him. Treerazer immediately takes 66 spirit damage. If he takes any spirit damage from this symbol, he also takes 1d6 persistent void damage for 3 rounds. Each time he takes this persistent void damage, he becomes frightened 1. Another way the PCs can influence the tide of battle with Treerazer is by spending torment points. A torment point can be spent at any time during the battle. Spending 3 torment points reduces the result of any of Treerazer's checks down by 1 degree. Spending 1 forces Treerazer to reroll a strike, save, perception check, or skill check, and spending 2 torment points allows the PCs to recharge a use of one of the battlefield resources from the Encarthan Alliance. As this epic battle unfolds, the Witch Bowl is violently collapsing and imploding, which causes effects on the PCs in Queen Talandia and Treerazer. At the end of each round, one of these 5 Witch Bowl collapse effects takes place. The ground rumbles and shakes, knocking creatures prone unless they succeed at acrobatics checks. Jagged shards of Witch Bowl shrapnel tear through the battlefield, causing 8d6 piercing damage. A blast of energy flows over the battlefield, causing 10d6 random energy damage. A wave of anguish washes over all creatures, causing 6d10 spirit damage. And the last effect has 2 of these other effects happening at the same time. The final battle of the Spore War is a desperate clash for Kyonin's survival. If the PCs fail, Treerazer either slaughters them or forces the survivors to watch as Kyonin succumbs to corruption at a horrifying pace. But if they succeed in slaying the Demon Lord, Treerazer's death is nothing short of catastrophic for him. As the death blow lands, Treerazer screams in rage, pain, and humiliation. His weapon, Black Axe, falls embedding into the ground, and the demon's body decays rapidly as parasitic fungi burst from within him. Moments later, Treerazer explodes in a violent eruption of acid, poisonous vapors, and decaying flesh, leaving only a desolate patch of land where he once stood, a place where nothing will ever grow again. The ruined Witch Bowl, now without its master, begins its final collapse, disintegrating into an enormous heap of unholy wood and monstrous remnants. The structure's destruction leaves a chaotic zone. It becomes a temporary refuge for demons, cultists, and monsters, a dangerous dungeon complex ripe for adventurers seeking treasure and challenge. The vast fortune of elven relics and heirlooms Treerazer hoarded in the Witch Bowl rains down around Iadara, and the elves work to distribute the wealth in the aftermath. With Treerazer's death and the destruction of the Witch Bowl, Tanglebriar's corrupt expansion halts, but the existing corruption, spanning over 2 millennia, will take much longer to heal. The key to reclaiming the land is the Purify Tanglebriar ritual learned from Aelthian, though its high level will limit who can cast it. Each successful casting clears a 1-mile radius, but the vast size of Tanglebriar means it will take years to purify fully. While the ritual's success offers temporary purification for a month, a critical success ensures permanent cleansing. Even with rapid ritual casting, it will take years to fully restore Tanglebriar. After the end of the Spore War, the Encarthan Alliance secures 5 of 6 nations, with only Multhune refusing to stay in the alliance due to ongoing conflict with Nermathis. Even if allied initially, Multhune will later break its promises, reverting to hostility under worldly and supernatural influences. When Treerazer falls, Black Axe embeds itself in the ground at Iadara's edge, nearly impossible to remove and corrupting the area into a miniature Tanglebriar. The elves contain the site, studying the artifact while seeking a way to extract and destroy it. Meanwhile, demonic cults and secret societies plot to reclaim the axe. Treerazer's body does not simply crumble to the ground. Instead, he bursts into a violent explosion of rot, acid, and demonic energy, leaving behind a blasted stain on the ground. In the months or years to follow, an unsettling number of rumors arise, discoveries of vile relics throughout the Inner Sea region. Much as with the death of Gorham and the spread of war shards, Treerazer's death has a similar but more localized effect. What strange powers might a clan of lowly goblins discover after finding a disembodied green talon at the bottom of a nearby swamp? Who can say what influence the eldritch heart-like organ resting on a distant mountain peak might have on those who dwell on its lower slopes? Perhaps the most disturbing of all the rumors is that Treerazer's broken, decapitated head survived the explosion, and that the demonic relic has come to rest in a place where it can potentially do the most damage, on the shores of the Isle of Terror. What horrific necromancy might the Whispering Tyrant perform once he has the head of another of the Inner Sea's most notorious villains as his trophy? As the glory of Kyonin's triumph fades, new threats emerge on the horizon. The shadow of Tar-Bafan's return still looms over the Inner Sea, and a century-long simmering conflict threatens to tear the region apart, and the region will once again find themselves embroiled in a new and unexpected war. That will conclude the Spore War adventure path. So, Book 3, Voice in the Blight, was my favorite book out of the 3 installments of this adventure path. Though it's hard for me to say that because I thought all of the books were really good. The whole Spore War adventure path is just great. Easily in my top picks for Pathfinder 2nd Edition APs. A Voice in the Blight has a lot of moving parts. The GM and the players will need to be tracking a ton of different points: triumph points, infiltration points, edge points, awareness points, torment points. The GM will be tracking what war interludes triumph points were spent in or not, also keeping track of what targets of opportunity have been disabled in the Witch Bowl, and the like different effects those have in specific areas, then making the changes as needed to the encounters. Same with the memories in Hollerock. They'll need to make changes to Treerazer's stat block depending on the failures or successes there. But this is part of what I really liked about the whole adventure path. Like, different groups will have different experiences depending on the PC's choices and their successes and failures throughout the whole adventure path. I thought it was really cool how they tied everything together, and there was a lot of cause and effect throughout the adventure path. I also thought that the Amaranthine Oubliette in the first chapter was a really cool location. The Python has a very interesting backstory, and unfortunately, I just didn't have enough room to cover his whole backstory in this overview. But the Amaranthine Oubliette location would be a great location to have like a high level, like mega dungeon with the Python as the main villain. The Witch Bowl would also be a great location to have a very high level mega dungeon. Chapter 2 and 3 are very tense. I could feel how tight the stakes were when reading them. It really felt like there was a chance of failure for the PCs, which I don't get that feeling from reading most APs. Some of the parts in the Witch Bowl are deadly, like deadly with a capital D, and as they should be. It's Treerazer's fortress. The final battle with Treerazer can also go horribly wrong, like, or badly, if the PCs had more failures than successes. Like in the Witch Bowl, they didn't collect a lot of torment points. Also in Hollerock, if they were unable to give Treerazer those penalties to knock his level down, that ending battle could be really, really, really difficult. Also, the ticking clock with the siege, also it adds like tension. If the PCs take too long, over 6 days in the Witch Bowl, Treerazer just automatically wins. It's a great way to put the pressure on, but the PCs won't know the exact timing of these events like in play. So I don't know how that pressure would feel like during actual play. I just know from reading the adventure path, like I could feel the pressure while reading it, and I really, really liked that. So I'm not a huge fan of the infiltration system, and this book relies on it heavily, but it does do a good job at representing the PC's journey, like in the Witch Bowl and Amaranthine Oubliette with the infiltration subsystem. But I will always prefer a good old dungeon crawl over the infiltration system. And it does say in the book that those locations, the Witch Bowl and Amaranthine Oubliette, are just too massive to have them fully mapped out. So I said it in my book 2 overview, but I'll say it again. The art in all of the books throughout this whole adventure path has been amazing. I've been missing the gritty, detailed artwork, and it matched up so well with the theme and tone of the AP. I loved the artwork in these books. So overall, this was a great climax to the Spore War adventure path. If you haven't already watched my overview of book 1 and 2, check those out. If there is another AP that you want to see an overview for, let me know in the comments. I've been so immersed in the Spore War adventure path for the past months. It will be cool to start something new. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. And as always, happy GMing.